So what sort of impact will increased sanctions have on Russian investments and Russian oligarchs right here in the UK? We're now joined by the author Ben Judah. He's written a book about Russia, fell in love and out of love with Vladimir Putin, and by the financial analyst Louise Cooper. Welcome to you both. Let's start with you, Ben. So, as we saw in Jonathan Miller's report, Russia or Moscow, the oligarchs need London. London needs the oligarchs. Who needs who more?
Let's first explain how Russian corruption works. The Russian regime have been asset strippers before they've been empire builders, and the billions stolen in Russia, out of every ruble stolen, a good sort of chunk of those kopecks will come to London. And the people bringing that money to London are British lawyers, British bankers and British consultants. And Vladimir Putin has been confident that no sanctions will be placed on his elite's fortunes in London because he doesn't believe the British elite will kill the golden goose that feeds it.
But if those sanctions are targeted, as they have been already, against some of the inner circle of Vladimir Putin, and if this affects any banks, let's say, that have Russian interests, then there will be some impact on the City of London, won't there?
Well, I'm very confident that Britain is not a weak, small island, but Britain is a financial superpower. The actual percentage of Russian money traded officially in the City of London is very small, and Russia is a very vulnerable power. The Russian state is essentially funded off two banks, VTB and Sberbank, and two energy giants, Rosneft and Gazprom. Sanctions on those, and it's all over.
Louise Cooper, do you agree?
Well, I actually think that sanctions are being effectively done by the private sector, because what you're seeing is the Russian stock market down massively, or down significantly. You're seeing the borrowing costs for Russian government, but more importantly, Russian companies shoot up. What you have to understand is that Russia is integrated with the global financial system. Its companies raise money overseas from foreign investors, and their companies raise money on the equity market from foreign investors. Right. And already those investors are saying, we think Russia is becoming uninvestable. So to me, in a way, the sanctions are to one side. The private sector is already stepping back from Russia.
We also know that there's been a bank run. I mean, billions of rubles have left the Russian economy in recent weeks. Where's all that money going? Is it going to bricks and mortar in Chelsea? Is it going into British banks, Swiss banks, Austrian banks?
This money is spewing into the empire of tax havens that Britain has, over which the sun never sets, from the Cayman Islands to Gibraltar, and it's going to tax havens dotted around the European Union. In fact, the Russian opposition see British and European elites as deeply hypocritical, preaching anti-corruption and support for democracy in public, but in private, welcoming money stolen from their country.
But if the Americans say it's time for tougher economic sanctions, and even if the Germans are prepared to go along with this, then surely London cannot stay isolated and say, we're not going to do this because it affects our economic interests.
But they don't need to, because if America uses its dominance of the world's financial system to prohibit trade with Russia, the game is over, because then any bank in the UK or institution in the UK cannot deal with it. So really, and we've seen America use that power before.
Do you agree with that?
The view in Moscow and the view from kind of Putin's courts and from high Russian finance is that what you've been describing as a spot of bother, and that once Russia has safely controlled Ukraine, bankers will appreciate that the West's not going to sanction and everything will go back to normal.
But hang on a minute. We know that Vladimir Putin has taken on the oligarchs, some of the most powerful oligarchs himself. Could it not be possible that even if the oligarchs are suffering and sanctions hurt them, Putin doesn't care?
These people are not oligarchs. Calling them oligarchs makes it sound like they're businessmen. These people are political bosses. These people are pillars of the state. They're Putin's bankers and they're the bankers of the state and its ministers.
But in that case, if Putin, their political boss, says, we've got to stick together here, we've got to circle the wagons, we're in the lager, then they care less about the money than they do about their own legacy.
The reason...
Well, they are being hurt. I mean, without a shadow of a doubt. The Russian stock market is incredibly cheap because of the Putin discount.
But is the hurt transferring into a change of policy in Moscow?
The reason that Putin has ruled for so long is that so much money has been riding on him staying, and he's been viewed as the guarantor of that money and of that asset structure. If he gets to be seen as a threat to that money and a threat to that asset structure, things could change very quickly.
He is a threat. Russia, according to one report from Sberbank, owes over $700 billion externally. That is foreign investors lending money to Russian government, Russian companies through debt and through bonds. And it is costing Russia. There is a credit crunch currently going on in Russia that will cost the economy.
Got to end it there, but I guess we can agree on follow the money still counts, even in this story. Louise Cooper,
Indeed.
Ben Judah, thanks very much. Jackie.